Welcome back to First Year in Medical Device Sales. I am your host, Jacob McLaughlin, and today I am bringing you a very close friend, but not only a close friend, somebody who is an absolute stud, who has been able to crush it in medical device sales and been able to climb her ranks from an associate all the way to the VP of sales. She has worked for some of the largest medical device companies in the world, and she runs an organization and helps people have success in medical device sales inside her own organization. And so today I get to bring you all a very close friend of Sarah Stengel, who has been in medical device sales for 7 years, has climbed the ranks extremely fast, and has been able to absolutely crush it in the industry. But even more important, just an amazing human being. She is somebody who worked with me when I was first trying to break into medical device sales, literally spent time with me, and I owe a lot of my success of breaking into medical device sales to Miss Sarah. So Sarah, welcome to New to Medical Device Sales and First Year In.
Thanks for having me.
It is such a pleasure to have you. And we were just talking on the roof how crazy it is to think about 6 years ago. And for me, it was really 4 years ago that I met you when I was trying to break into medical device sales, and where we were both at in life. In our careers and to where life is today. And so it's really cool and a really special moment just to be able to sit here with you and kind of go over reflecting on that, but also know that you're going to be able to help a lot of people because you helped me a lot. And so it's just a special moment to have you here today and be able to share your knowledge and your expertise with our people.
I appreciate it. I actually got chills when you were just saying that. It's so crazy to see how this is kind of like come full circle.
Yeah, it truly is. And like what we always tell you guys is like your relationships matter and your network matters. And like if you guys actually go back, I think maybe the third episode I ever posted was an episode with you when we filmed one when you guys were doing your own podcast. And now to where it's at, where our podcast has gone and grown and where you're at, it truly is amazing of the network, but the relationships and been able to grow with each other and to watch your success. Because when I first met you, you had just been at one company and then you were moving into the next one to see where you're at now, VP of sales, absolutely crushing it. It's so cool to watch.
Well, I can say the same about you, right? I mean, you have to support and build each other up. So while I appreciate the positivity and the accolades, like just watching what you did, right? Going from a fitness instructor, just having this fire passion. You just knew what you wanted so bad and nothing was going to stop you from doing it, right? It was easy to help you, right? Because you were so coachable and took it all in and broke into a territory. Man. Like who does that? Who does that? So, I mean, it's awesome to see you, and you know, you've always been about giving back and helping other people. And it's one of the reasons I think why we connect so well.
Yeah.
So kind of watching your success almost from, you know, the outside and from afar, I'm super proud of you. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It means a lot. And that's not just coming from anyone. So that's a VP of sales. Everyone said they're proud of me. But no, I want to take some time to just really get to know who you are and let the listeners get to know about kind of your experience. So can you just give a quick little summary about who you are and like what got you even interested in med device sales before you got to where you're at today?
It's just kind of crazy. Everything seems to happen for a reason, right? Yeah. So I studied kinesiology in college, broke off from that, actually worked in the tourism space. Didn't make any sense. But, you know, I kind of knew that I always wanted to, actually, no, I'll tell you what happened. So I was in a class at ASU and they had a physical therapist from AT Still come in to talk about physical therapy. And I was kind of leaning towards like occupational therapy or like being an optometrist for little kids with the cute little glasses. I shit you not, the physical therapist said to me, or not to me, but like to the class, if you're not 110% in to being a physical therapist and you know that that's what you want to do, don't do it. Because the student loans you're going to have to pay, you know, they make $80,000 a year. Like that's a pretty successful physical therapist. He's like, I'm still paying back my student loans, and he'd been a physical therapist for 5-6 years. And I kind of remember sinking back into my chair going, I need to really kind of take another look at this. That doesn't sound fun to me. Right? Like, I don't come from money. I don't come from any of that, right? And the thought of having to pay back those loans and owing somebody money when I'm $80,000 a year is great, right? It's a stable income,
yep,
right? You know, you're above, you know, where most Americans are at.
Yep.
But having to pay that back and have those loans over my head, I'm like, this just isn't for me.
Well, you're actually like, when you add up the loans, you're worse than the average American, right? Because it's like the average American makes about $55,000 a year.
Right.
You make 80, but if you're paying over 30, 40,000 in loans a year,
it's insane.
And but let's say you pay the minimum and you did 10 or 15, but now you're doing that for 20 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I totally understand.
I'll skip the unimportant part, but I was working as a business analyst, and I had met somebody who's in medical device sales and, you know, kind of understood and saw, you know, what he was doing on a day-to-day basis. You know, oh, I'm in the OR with surgeons. Holy crap, that's so cool, right? You know, you're like, wow, I like anatomy and physiology. I like helping people. I like, you know, trying to rise to the occasion and being a resource for surgeons. Like, this might be something I'm kind of interested in.
Yep.
And so I didn't even know what medical device sales was before that. So I started to look into it and, you know, just started putting feelers out there, connected with recruiters, you know, got connected with a recruiter who ultimately was the recruiter that got me into the first round of interviews with Boston Scientific.
Love it.
I guess one piece of advice, just make sure you do your research.
Come on.
On who the company is.
Yep.
Even before that, my first conversation with the recruiter, they can't really tell you what the company is. They can give you a little bit about the position, but they don't actually tell you what the company is, or at least they didn't 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's the second interview, you know, he told me about the company and, are you aware of Boston Scientific? This is where I screwed up, right? Because it's like, this is one of the top 10 med device companies in the world.
Yep.
Right. But I knew the Medtronics, I knew the Strykers, but for whatever reason, my baseline, you know, research, I didn't know what Boston Scientific was.
Yep.
I played it off fine. But of course, after I hang up the phone, I'm Googling, what's Boston Scientific?
What do they even do?
Yeah. So, you know, it's like, you have to, it just kind of shows you have to have, really, you got to do your research even before you go into that next step of that second conversation with anybody you're talking about. Yep. Because you're going to look like an idiot. And, you know, you're already now one step behind.
Exactly.
So I guess, you know, I got that associate position with Boston Scientific. I think it was like 6 rounds of interviews. Yep. Started as an associate, you know, was there for 2 years. Kind of caught on early that being in the OR is kind of a double-edged sword. Yep. Right? Yep. It's, hey, you're going to perform and you have this quota to hit and you have to be in the OR to support these cases. But every year your quota increases. But now to hit your quota, you have to spend more time in the OR. Yep. So how are you supposed to go out and sell when you're in the OR all day long? Yep. It just doesn't make any sense. Yep. So that's when I kind of made the jump to Wright Medical. I found out early that they were hiring and they were building out a new team for biologics. Yep. I researched what biologics was, and then I kind of realized, you know, this is kind of the future, right? If I can get a baseline understanding of this now, it's going to help you in your career. It's going to help me in my career going forward.
Come on. Such a good way to look at it.
So that's where I got that position. Biologic specialist at Wright Medical. There was a Stryker acquisition. Yep. We were a newer division. Kind of saw the writing on the wall with that one. Yep. And in that time, I was introduced to some distributor owners in Arizona. Yep. Went to a meeting that wasn't even originally supposed to be about me. Yeah. Right? I was kind of going as a support and kind of vet through and get the vibe of who we were talking to, because I've heard terrible things about distributors.
Come on. If you don't know, you don't know.
Right. And so I'm like, well, if this is something you're considering doing, I'm going to go there and I'm going to apply some pressure. Yep. Turns out that's kind of what turned one of the owners on to me, is because I was applying a lot of pressure to him. And now, you know, we kind of joke about it. He's like, I really respected that you did that, right? You didn't just like take what I was saying with a grain of salt. You really challenged me on it.
Make sure they're experts and know what they're talking about. Yeah.
I mean, just see who they are as people too, right? So, you know, that was kind of the exit strategy. Yep. You know, I took a severance with Stryker. And, looking back, everything happens for a reason.
Preach.
But because of that non-compete and that severance, it kind of put me a couple steps back going into this distributorship and the opportunity that I could have had going into it. With distributorships, one of the pros about it is you're not pigeonholed to one thing.
Yeah, one product or one company normally.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what had happened was, I was around for a big shift in their business. And then ultimately, like, I'm not afraid to say it, the what we switched to and what our focus is now, I didn't have any existing relationships in.
Come on.
Right? We're calling on foot and ankle surgeons, podiatrists. I know urologists.
Yep.
And I know trauma surgeons.
Yep. Come
right.
on.
Like, or shoulder, right. I don't know podiatrists.
Yep.
And I was back to square one again. Right. And it's like, you have this success at, with
These
sales.
others. Yep.
And then you're going back to the hard cold calling, 15 touches a day.
Build the territory. You're back to zero.
With nothing to go off of.
Yep.
And the market was really unique. I was selling something that I was very confident in because of my experience in biologics at Wright Medical. So it wasn't that I didn't know the product. It's not that I didn't know how to sell or how to cold call or do anything like that. It was such a relationship focused sell, I guess, that I wasn't really having any success. And that was a really hard thing for me to swallow. Right. Yeah. I was lucky enough to where my owners of my distributorship were paying me like a $5,000 base salary. Which is enough to survive, right?
Well, per month. Yeah.
Per month. Per month. Thank you. Thank you. Shout out.
Like $5,000 a year. That's what all these people do. They're like, no way, I can't live off that. So no, $5,000
a month. Yeah. But you're now making $60,000 when you're used to making six figures.
Exactly.
Right? That's a harsh reality.
Exactly.
You feel like you're
just losing.
Terrible.
Yeah. You feel like you went back 10 steps and you're not good enough. And why did you even do, like, you start to question everything.
Dude, the mental toll that it took on me, the physical toll, right? It's like, you're doing everything you can. You're putting yourself and your mental and physical well-being on the back burner. Like, everything else is a priority because with distributorships, that's one of the benefits is it's eat what you kill.
Exactly.
But that's also one of the really harsh realities is it's you eat what you kill.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
So with that, I honestly, it was just a huge blessing is, the two owners, they saw the value that I brought and they saw how hard I was working, even though I didn't really have anything to show for it. And what they did, and again, I'm so pro distributorship right now.
Yeah, come on. Yep.
And so I don't mean to keep harping on it.
No, I want you to because we don't talk enough about it. So we're gonna dive a lot more into it. So yes, please.
So they actually gave me an opportunity to shift. They're like, hey, you know what you're doing, right? And you know the product, you know how it works. You can speak to all of that. So what we want you to do is actually grow our national presence. I went from a sales rep to, national sales director, I think was the title. And it was just purely networking, right? LinkedIn, local reps, what to search, who to call.
Relationships,
all relationships and networking, right? I would have, 10 calls a day with these people. And I was selling really the therapy, selling the fact that they have these existing relationships and I'll teach you everything you need to know. Right. So it was very different, right? Yes. I'm not selling to a surgeon. I'm selling to distributors, sales reps,
things that are only going to actually help them even be more competitive and actually help them on the back end. You're selling a great product to help them with the value they're going to bring to a surgeon.
Right. That grew. And then, beginning of the year was promoted to VP of sales. We now have 2 direct reports, but, we took it from, what were we doing? I don't know, probably about 5 million a quarter in sales to now we're going to hit 17 million a year later, a quarter.
Woo! You guys have never even heard that much money in your life. That's in 3 months. Come on, Sarah.
So yeah, it was, the growth was really awesome. But it's all about the opportunity and the timing of things.
Come on. Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of the story of how I got here?
Well, first off, love every second of it. And there's like 18 things we're going to dive in because like you said, there's so much value in what you just said. We could stop the podcast of just your story and people will be like, I learned so much, right, from what you already said. But I wanted to touch base just on a couple things that you said earlier. Is one reason you and I connected so well was I had a kinesiology degree. I was looking at OT school as well. And we had talked about this is like, I pay for everything myself, just like you did, right? And it's like, it didn't make sense for me to go to school for $100,000. It was $140K. I remember doing the math with you. It was like $140,000 for 2.5 years to go be a master's here at medical or one of the OT schools. I was only going to make 65 to 80,000, cap out at 100. I did the math. I was going to have to spend $1,500 a month if I wanted to pay it back in 10 years. I was going to be living off of under $15,000 a year while I was in school, right. So homeless. And then from there, I would actually go in. By the time I'm paying rent, loans, all the stuff back, I would be lucky if I had an extra $500 to my name. And I would have to do that till and I was thinking I was good at 25 to be an OT. I'm like, I would have to do that till I'm 35.
Right.
Okay, let me have you guys think about that. Another 6 years to where I'm at currently. And then from there, I would then just break even to be making 80 to 100K to then, oh, you want to buy a house? You want to buy a car? Even more debt.
Right.
And so it didn't make any sense. And so I just want to put that out there because I know a lot of listeners that we have are, I just talked to 2 kids today, going to go to med school. They don't want to go into 500 grand of debt. So it's like, you go that, we already have that section of, go be a resident and a doctor and surgeon.
I love doctors, right? They're brilliant, but it's funny. So one of my good friends' friends,
yep.
She's now starting residency as a podiatrist.
Yep.
And what's funny is, she would talk about, at dinners or whatever, she would discuss, I can't wait to, decide what reps and what products I'm going to use. And, I'm going to, quiz my reps and X, Y, and
blah,
Z,
blah,
and
blah.
I'm going to have so much power. Yeah. And I'm kind of like, honey, no disrespect to podiatrists, but like there's different, you've got MDs, you've got DOs, and then you've got DPMs, right? And it's this, I get it. You're a physician, you're brilliant and, you're skilled
yep.
and all this stuff, but you're not going to have the power that you think you have with everything that's changing yep. in the medical space.
Just bring up the laws.
Yep. Well, I mean, you can't use, if you want to use Smith and Nephew, but the hospital has a contract with Stryker, guess what? You're using Stryker.
Yeah, especially if you're brand new or if you're not bringing in millions of dollars,
right.
Good luck ever even being in the rooms to talk about it.
Your value doesn't carry shit. Yeah. No offense.
Yeah.
So it's like there's just all these changes, and yep. It's just even. I wanted to shake her because I'm like, dude, like top of the class, brilliant. Yep. I'm like, dude, if that's what you wanted to go be a plastic surgeon, like go
somewhere where you can actually go and have that spot right. where you can make the money and do all
right. That. But it's just there's so many preconceived notions, and you don't know it until you're in it. I'm just a sales rep.
Yeah,
I'm not telling you as a DPM. Like what you're going to face.
Yeah.
But I can give you a little bit of insight, 6-7 years of insight that,
Yeah. Oh, I know, because this is the whole thing. You don't know what you don't know. And this is like, we have this talk. I had this talk with both people today. They decided not to go to med school. It's been super interesting. Now, we all have got the opportunity to meet some surgeons and doctors we absolutely love, and they love what they do.
Right.
But you want to know the ones that normally are those people is they've made the business out of it.
Yep.
Every other person is just a high paid employee. And this will make a lot of doctors and surgeons and people mad. And then they're going to bring out that I'm smarter than you. I put in more school and whatever it is.
Which you have.
And you have, right? But here's my whole whoop-de-doo. I went to less schooling, have not the debt, and I make more money. Oh, right. There is the check mark for it. But the reason I'm sitting here saying that to most of these people is they're very high paid employees. They have to work. They have to do this stuff. Then the ones who figure it out is they go make their own business. They go get their own clinics. But guess what? Now you have to do all the work until you hire more doctors. You have to take all the overhead. You got to get the right. clinic. You have to deal with the medical assistants. You have to deal with the nurses, the people that work for $19 an hour and turn over every 3 months because they don't like something, right? And then you get it. And then everyone, they miss this, is you're going to go deal with the patients. Everyone's like, oh, the patients are like, they're the best. You want to know what my number one conversation is with doctors that have to see people in the office? How mean human beings are.
It's getting worse.
It's getting worse because people have this, well, I can post on TikTok or I can post on Instagram and I can just rip these people, the people who are the Yelp reviewers. Oh, right. Good Lord, they have power, right? And so the reason I just touch on that for everyone who's thinking about this in the med school is like, go talk with many surgeons, because I can personally tell you, I used to train a lot of surgeons and lawyers. I always ask surgeons and lawyers, if you could redo your life, would you do it? I have yet to have one say yes.
And it all comes back to your motivation, right? If you're becoming a physician to make money and be a baller and, the houses and the cars and the financial freedom, like, you might want to
think of something. Well, they do it, but here's the whole thing. I see it all the time. $500,000 to $1 million in debt. Then they're like, it's always I deserve, or I want a Porsche, a Ferrari, whatever it is, because now I'm making 30 grand a month, 50 grand a month. I just came out, I'm making 250 my first year, all this stuff. Then they go buy a nice house and they talk about it. It's like, book for you all to read, Millionaire Next Door. Talks about wealth. You know who they talk about as some of the poorest people when it comes to wealth? Doctors. Every single time. Why? Because they go buy liabilities right away, and then they have all the debts and they have a bunch of liabilities. They don't actually have assets. And then they have a bunch of high spend, and then they go buy depreciating assets, aka cars, boats, stuff like that. And then it goes down. This has nothing to do about med device sales. We're just trying to give you stuff.
Like a little tangent. It's just,
Hey, but this is all about value, and we give it to you. But just so you know, like, that's what we talk about, is like when you think about med school doctors and stuff like that, it's who we work with, and there's a lot of amazing ones. But I can also sit here and tell you what she just said is you face it in the industry. Power, ego. Hey, this is what I want. It's the one place they have the power. And guess what? You get that with scrub techs. You get that with nurses, right? So it's your job as a rep to actually understand that. Because why we can talk to you guys and be so candid, you guys will be like, oh, if your doctor's doing all this stuff, like, we have these same conversations with the doctors. Now, I won't sit here and say to every doctor, like, probably should have done something different. Right. But the whole conversation is like what you said. What do they actually love? Because the ones that I actually see who love it, if it was just finances, it's the business portion that we talk about. But there are people who are like, my calling was to be a surgeon, which is incredible. It's that's when you make it, and the people who love it. Right. Because that's the ones when you're like at the conferences, you see the people that are on speaking. They're like, look what I did for this person. But what I watch a lot of times is you get the surgeons who came in because mommy and daddy told them to go be a surgeon or a doctor, or society tells us because you're going to be safe. And now they're stressed out because they're working all the time. They're not getting treated the best. They have all the stuff to pay back. And then it's...
Well, not even that too, right? It's like the reimbursement for a total hip or total knee, however many years ago, was... And don't quote me on this, right? But let's say it was like $5,000, right? Now these doctors are making $1,200 for a total knee, total hip. Like, they're getting raked over the coals with these procedures and reimbursement, and they're continuing to go down and down and down. It's now not as like financially secure being a surgeon as it was 10 years ago. Well, it's a completely different space.
You got to have your own insurance just in case anything goes wrong. There's all stuff. We are giving you guys.
Sorry.
You are welcome to every single person that is like, holy crap, I didn't even know about this. But to go back to the first point of like, yes, you could have gone to schooling. There's a lot of people who could go to schooling and do other stuff and pay a lot of money. But make sure, number one thing, do you love it? Right? Why are you doing it? Because that's why I decided not to go to OT school. And like you said, everything happens for a reason. Right. Went to fitness, went in here, and then got into med device sales, met you, went through this process. But what I wanted to talk to you about and what I want listeners to hear is, you brought up the recruiters. Now, we talk about a lot of times in our programs, we don't really work with recruiters because most recruiters have told, like we just had somebody tell one of our people to F off, who was a recruiter. He reached out to him, has no experience, but he came from the EMT space. The recruiter literally messaged back, F off. 3 weeks later, I got that person hired at $100,000. The reason I'm sitting here telling you is most of the time when I'm working with the recruiters, we don't work with a lot of traditional B2B people, right? Even we get people from ADP Enterprise who still come into our program. They still have troubles with recruiters. Why? The recruiters don't care about you. They're going to put 30 other people up. They're going to go and give you a piece of paper and say, study this. Hopefully it helps out. And then I always tell people, they're the middleman. And what I've always learned is if you guys have ever played telephone, it always comes back wrong. And my whole conversation is, if we're going to go talk to the hiring manager, go talk to the hiring manager. Don't hiring manager, I'm going to talk to the recruiter. The recruiter's going to talk to you. You talk to the recruiter. They talk. It just is an extra step. But for you, it worked out.
Well, I'll say, I got very lucky with that one recruiter. Mm-hmm. There were a handful of recruiters that told me, you have no sales experience. Go work at Xerox, ADP, go get some sales experience, and then,
reach out to me in 6 or 12 months.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And it's just, you also have to know your own value. And
come on.
You have to be realistic with it. I'm not talking this, everybody wants stuff handed to them.
Preach it.
Because I have a pulse and a heartbeat, like I deserve this. You don't deserve shit.
Come on.
Like you have to take a real honest, hard look in the mirror at yourself.
Yep.
And if you know your worth and you know the value you bring to the table, if anybody tells you no or you're not good enough, that's a mirror to themselves, right? It doesn't mean anything. But like you're going to face that with recruiters all day long.
Yep.
I did.
Yep.
I got extremely lucky. But also I will say I received coaching from who I was with at the time and their brother who was a VP it was beer sales. It wasn't even med device, but sales is sales.
Yep, come on.
Right? And they would spend time with me, prepping me for interviews, overcoming, objections, all this stuff. So it wasn't even the recruit. He was great and, provided some level of support, but you needed somebody else that, actually cares about you and wants to see you succeed.
Exactly.
And is going to tell you the harsh truths in order for you to get better.
And understands the process too, right? Because like a lot of that times, this is our whole conversation. A lot of times recruiters will tell you the wrong territory, tell you the wrong position.
Well, they've never done it before.
Bam, and they've never been, and that's my big thing is a lot of them have never been in the industry.
Right.
They don't know what it is. They've just been recruiting. Rick's been recruiting for 15 years.
Right.
But it's like, it's way different than do that than to actually talk to a surgeon.
Right.
And do that stuff. So that,
not to cut you off. It's like the marketing people. I know this will resonate with every salesperson, right? It's like the marketing people telling the salespeople how they have to go about and approach things. It's just that you don't get it because you're not in it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So just so you know, we have an episode dropping right before this. If you guys haven't watched it, go back. We had Heidi Spiegel, who is with Medtronic Global Marketing. And we talk about this for the fact that she was a sales rep for 7 years before she went into marketing. And that's what we talk. I said the exact same thing is it doesn't matter what organization you go into. Sales talks crap about marketing, marketing talks crap about sales because they don't understand each other. They're separate, but then they tell each other what each other need.
Right.
Compared to you go into it. But you're 100% right. And it's like being able to actually understand it. And so if you guys know what to do and what to expect, that's what we always just take pride on is I've done this with thousands of people. We know what to expect. And then we're actually caring about you and actually getting you because your background's different than Janny and whoever we're going to work with, right? So being able to overcome and know your worth. But the thing I love what you said right there, and we talk about it on the podcast a lot is, the amount of people, especially the ones who grind my gears the most is, I got a master's, so I deserve. I'm like, go take that master's and shove it. Let me tell you why. You don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Kinesiology. I did strength and conditioning. You know how many 24-year-olds came out with a master's in kinesiology and didn't know how to do a squat?
A
lot.
The majority of them.
Yeah, and they're all trying to teach people and they don't know how to have chest up, hips back, weight on the heels. What happens when you have somebody come with a broken leg? What are you going to do then? Where's your master's degree there? The reason I'm sitting here telling you, so many people will come in me, piece of paper, wave it in my face, and I'm like, put us on the starting line together. I will rip you apart for breakfast. So the reason I'm sitting here telling you, if you guys have a master's, doctorate, whatever it is, please just take that to, I'm not saying this to be mean. We say this to every single person that comes into my program. Take your resume, rip it up, and screw your past. Does not matter. I don't care if you're freaking Donald Trump. Put us on the starting line together, and here we go. Because what everybody will do is they'll take their past and be like, well, I've done this, I've done that.
It doesn't mean shit.
It's the whole thing with the master's. You have a master's. How does that make you a good medical device sales rep? Oh, you've never sold anything? So what does that do? But I expect to get $80,000 because I'm smarter than Johnny. Johnny, who has no degree and done door-to-door sales for the last 2 years, is way better at sales than you ever will be, even with your master's. And then they'll come in with their ego. No, and I'm like, please come in. I can't wait to watch you just get humbled. And I just put this out there for you guys. Again, I have nothing to ever win from this. It's just to help you. But why have we continued to be successful? I sit here and tell you, I'm in a very blessed spot to have multiple businesses. We do our stuff now. Bam. Why? Because rent is due every single day. I have employees the other day. I'm up at 5:30 in the morning and they're on East Coast time and I'm on meetings with them at 5:30 and then I'm sending them emails at 9 p.m. my time. Why do I do that? Because I'm the person who does everything and I'm still doing the work. It's due every single day. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter what success you have. Made a massive deal when I was at Innovis and largest deal in company's history. And we did all this stuff. What I do the very next day, woke up, acted like I was zero and had to go hit quota. But I watch all these people. Why are they never top performers? I had a little success. Or you went to Boston Sci, did well, and were able to go somewhere else. But then you're like, well, at Boston Sci, I did. Your next at bat's the only thing that matters. right? And that's what I just think about is Kobe Bryant, 1% better every single day. But I wanted to put that out there for the people to hear this is because we're talking to a top performer. You'll see the other top performers that we continue to have on the show and the program. And what is it every single time? They're always hungry. They're always getting better. Like one of the guys we have on our team right now, why I love him, such a top performer, does what he needs to, actually makes the deal, asking for feedback. Compared to all the other people, med device reps, you know how many people I watch get a doctor or get a sale and they're like, I must be Jesus. I must be God. I'm the greatest person who's ever walked on this planet, compared to every single high performer I've met. Like my day when I got that deal done, that PO came in. You know what? The first thing I thought in my head, I smiled, my CEO went crazy, and I was like, well, now the work begins.
Yeah. What's next?
That's number one. But number two, then it goes in reviews, and I went back, I had a review log of every single meeting we had and everything we have talked about. And I say, what can I do next time I have a massive deal in this to make it go faster?
Right.
Because that's where it actually comes in and it actually matters. So I just wanted to talk to you on that, because we're having reps that are not in the industry, or we have them in the industry listening to you. What has helped you be able to progress from broken as an associate sales rep to climb the ranks to where you're now a VP? Like, what has that been for you through that journey?
That's a loaded question.
And that's why we ask it, baby. Come on.
I think it comes down to just like my intangible qualities.
Yep. Come on.
You have to be very humble, right?
Yes.
You have to humble yourself.
Yep.
But it's this fine balance. And we were kind of talking about this a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
If you would have asked me this a year ago, I probably would have been like, everybody's on the same playing field.
Yep.
You know, everybody's here.
Yep.
There's no difference between men and women in med device,
Yep.
right? Everybody just needs to shut up and stop complaining.
Yep.
No, there's like an actual difference
Yep.
between being a male and a female in med device.
Yep.
There just is.
Yep.
I'm not saying that anybody should have any expectations because of one or the other. It's just it's different.
Yeah.
So for me, it was being humble enough to know that I still have a lot of growth to do.
Yep.
But it was also knowing my worth.
Come on.
Right. So at Boston Scientific, and I loved my whole team there.
Yep.
You know, from my manager to my coworkers, all gratitude. But what had happened was, I think it was probably 5 or 6 months into my first associate year, the senior associate moved to a different territory. New associate came in who hadn't been in med device either. Right? So you've got us two newbies, but I'm, 6 months in.
Yeah.
So procedures, I was starting to feel like I could go in
More
and
of a
hold
baseline.
my own.
Yeah.
Knew the territory really well, because what I did was I was blessed to have a top performing territory manager to learn from.
And those are not always out there, because there's only so many top performers to everybody out there. Because we hear this, I'm like, what do you get in? There's only top 10 performers.
Yeah.
You were blessed to have one of them that you got under.
I was blessed to have one of them.
Many of our people that we talk to, they get in and the person's 64.
Yeah.
And that's who they're learning from, right? So I'm blessed.
So
that's great.
It matters who you're learning from
Come
too.
on.
And that's something to consider, right? Don't just take a position because it's going to get you in the door.
Bam.
You have to think of that next step, right? Because you're green. You have to learn. You have to absorb. Just shut up and listen. Literally, right? The territory manager would go in. We'd go into a dinner meeting. We'd get there 10 minutes early. Hey, here's the goals. Here's what we're trying to get to. Here's where we're at.
Yes.
And he took the time to do that with me. And I could just watch him steer this conversation. And then at the end, we would break it all down, right? And he was I learned a lot, right? And that comes with, being more familiar with the product, the competition. It comes with experience. You get better at steering these conversations. But when you watch it happen, you just learn that much faster.
Yes. You just got paid to see how to be a top performer, and you're learning it in your first 6 months, and it took them years. That's what people miss on this whole mentorship. Everyone's like, oh, I don't want to pay any money, or I don't want to do anything. And it's like, would you pay any money to learn 5 years of experience in a week?
Right.
Because that's what you were doing.
Right.
You're literally watching a top performer, and guess what you're doing? Taking notes, learning, doing all this stuff. And crazy, guys, how it carried over to being VP of sales in under 7 years, where most people have taken 15, 20 years to get there.
Right.
Like,
I say that because there was an unfortunate situation, a little bit of like a Stark Law violation from the territory manager. He left. And now we're left with 2 associates and a regional manager covering, mind you, the average territory where I was at they had a $3 million quota.
Yep.
We had a $9 million quota. Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas.
Yep.
El Paso, Texas.
yeah.
Right? So you're flying, you're doing all this stuff, just trying to find the heads to cover cases was a lot. And what they decided to do was, we're managing this, right? So we're in April of this year, but we're going to ride this out for as long as we can before we hire a new territory manager.
Why would we pay any more extra money when we have 2 associates doing it for half the price and they're making us revenue?
Right. But there's also the expectation to hit your $9 million quota, and you're doing this with 2 associates. And I was the senior associate at that time, right? So I felt a sense of responsibility to like, well, and here's an opportunity, right? Am I ready for this? Probably not, but I'm going to fucking die trying to hit this quota. Baby. Right. We actually, Q4 is just madness, right? And being in Arizona, we have a lot of snowbirds. Everybody's hit their deductibles. Like that's when they're having procedures done. We had the cases going into the last 2 weeks of December. We had an unprecedented amount of cancellations. We were 99.9% to quota. We missed it by like, I think it was like $30,000, and the ASP for our procedures was like 11 grand.
You missed it by 3 cases.
Literally. And I was like, damn, we just did that. And then, now it's the start of a new year. Now, I know they're starting to consider hiring a territory manager. I remember having a conversation with my regional manager, and I love him. And I get it was a business decision, right? But I had a conversation with him. I'm like, look, this is what I just achieved. Leading this team. I want to throw my hat in the ring for this position. Not even like, I expect this, I deserve this. I just want a fighting opportunity.
Look at the work I just did.
Right.
Let me just have a chance to prove myself.
I thought I was at least owed an opportunity to interview. Do you know what I was told? We appreciate what you did, but you're still, just a year as an associate. This, we want somebody with more experience.
You guys know where I'm going with this, but I'm not even going to go off on
it. What they did was they brought in a territory manager who left the LA, went to a different industry, wasn't the best industry, and now he's trying to come back. And again, I adore him as a person.
Yeah, as a person. Yeah, it's nothing personal.
And after they hired him, my regional manager comes to me and says, hey, Sarah, this territory is so unique because there's a lot of bad blood against like urologists locally, bad like divorces and stuff like that. He goes, I'm going to need you to bring this guy up to speed on everything. And I'm just like, you have got to be effing kidding me. So now I'm a senior associate. I just did what I did that first year. I don't get an opportunity to interview. And now you're asking me to tell somebody how to do their job. Got it. Like, you made it perfectly clear. And at that point, I was like, I want to be valued.
Bam.
Right?
Come on.
And it's not like, oh, we were 50% to quota. It was, I have something to show for it.
Let me hit this real quick for everyone in the audience, because we have a lot of first year ins that are listening to this right there. That's not being ungrateful. That's knowing your value.
Right.
And this is my whole thing, is like, many of you guys will come in and be like, I know my value right away. But like, here's the whole thing is like, you proved it. And this is where I want you guys to always hear me, is because people will be like, oh, you got to go stay at a company for 20 years and all this stuff. And they're the same company that you just made them $9 million. They paid you guys associate fees. And then they don't even give you the opportunity.
Right.
You made them millions of profit. And then they're not even going to reimburse you guys. And then they don't even give you the opportunity. And now you're going to go train it.
Just an opportunity.
That's all it is. And so this is what I want everyone to hear in that story is, knowing your worth, but not going and being like whiny and be like, oh, Sarah saw that. And you're like, okay, this isn't the right spot for me anymore. Right. It's done it great and it's got me to where I'm at today. but I think I'm kind of capped where I'm at.
Yeah. And it's even during that process, right? Because there was still, I think I was there for probably almost another year.
Wow.
Working in tandem. And
Wow.
it was, I didn't complain. You know, it's, you just put team first.
Put your head
right?
down.
I'm still
Yep.
learning. What can I learn from this opportunity? And when something else came up that I thought was a better fit, I left, but I left in gratitude. I didn't stop working hard.
Come on.
I wasn't, causing issues. It was, we're just on different trajectories, and it's fine. But you have to know when to also walk away. I would have preferred to stay there.
Yeah, of course.
I loved my surgeons.
Yeah.
Was making a name for myself. I had relationships with, hospitals and things like that. And it was a lot more scary to go, I have to learn something brand new. I'm calling on a completely different specialty.
Yep.
Now I am starting from square one again. It was probably similar. Probably I made a little bit more money going in, right? Because you have a little bit more, once you have a track record of success, have a little bit more negotiating power.
Yep.
So it was, step up financially a little bit. But at that point, that was now more about principle for me than the financials.
Yep.
And that's ultimately why I left that position at Boston.
Well, that's huge. I just love that you went into so much depth for everybody, because there's so many associates listening to this, or first years, and they're like this is what I want everybody to hear, is one thing you said that really sticks out. It's always how you leave.
Yeah.
When I left Medtronic and all this stuff, I just want you guys all to know this is when I left, I said, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for everything that you've done for me. Thank you for everything there is. And then you leave on good terms. Now, here's the whole thing. Let me just make this really dang clear. They're not going to like it, especially if you provide a lot of value to a company. If you're a top performer, been there multiple times. When you're a top performer, when I was the number one at Med, I was number 8 in the nation, but number 1 on my team, you think my manager was like, oh, Jacob, I'm so glad you're leaving us. I just made their job harder.
Yeah.
The reason I'm just saying that is you can never control how they're going to take it. You can just control how you take it and how you handle it. And so I just always you said it, but it's so great because, guys, I left the division and then when it made to deal with them at my next company, right? But it's all, if I would have been screw you all, flipping the birds and going, it doesn't happen, right? And so it's all about how you leave it. But also one thing that I always, I laughed about was when I got told they're oh, you're going to leave right now, the grass isn't always greener. I get told that all the time. Just so you know, you probably all hear it from your reps currently. The grass isn't always greener. Let me just say, when I left, it was pretty damn green.
Yeah.
I literally left, and within the first job in the first month, made way more off my base. Just my base.
Yeah.
And then the opportunity there was there. So the reason I'm just saying here is what you said. I think so many people relate, whether they're trying to break in medical device sales because they thought they were going to be an OT, they thought they were going to do this the rest of their life, or they're in med device sales, they've been there for a year or two, and now they have other people saying, this isn't smart, because I hear that every day. Well, stay here, make 108K, and you could be here in 12 years, you could make 400. Okay, great, John, and you hate your life. I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
It's knowing your value. It is scary, but I say this to every single person I work with. Courage isn't that you're not scared. Courage is taking the step even though you are scared.
Yeah.
And Alex Hormozy, one of the guys I listen to, great podcast. If you guys ever want entrepreneurship, listen to him. But he's every time I've left, I've added another zero to my income. And he's every time I've left and I've jumped and I went to where people told me not to go, but I knew it was right for me.
Right.
He's I've always added another zero. I can sit here and tell you, yes. And it's always scary. When I went from Iowa to here,
right.
Scary. When I went from personal training to med device sales, it was scary. I was supposed to be a fitness trainer. I was supposed to do all this stuff. And then I'm at Medtronic, the largest company in the world, to then, bam, that's scary. You're going to a startup now. Is that going to work? Now we're doing this full time. When I left, there's never the right time to leave.
Right. They'll try to keep you, scare tactics. The VP of the division called me. What do we need to do to get you to stay?
They do it and they dangle the carrot. The amount of times I just need to put this out there because that's such a good point. The amount of times I've had people do this and then they're like, oh, we're having a promotion come up in 3 or 6 more months.
Yeah.
Crazy how it's never that day.
Yeah.
But it's always stay
get
for
more
another.
Out of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's always guys, this is corporate America in every division, not just med device sales. Dangle the carrot. You top reps make $600,000. One person.
Right. Yes. So true.
And the others made 140K, right?
Yeah.
But everyone, 600 grand, this could be you, right? So it's just like the conversations with it, they always dangle the carrot, no matter what industry you're in. But it's like, jump. When you're ready to jump and you know it, like, let me just sit here. Everybody who's listening to this, you know in your deep down soul when it's ready to jump. And I'm a big Steve Harvey fan. I'm a big believer in God. I might cuss every once in a while. Me and Jesus still working on that one. But the reason I'm saying that is Steve Harvey talks about it. When you jump, you're going to say, here's my parachute, and it's not going to open the first one.
Yeah.
But by the second or the third one, right before you hit, it will open. It's about the trust. I always say this, like the universe is really good at trust and make sure and check you to make sure it's what you want. Went into this division, like when I left, got a job offer for twice the amount of money I was making. Go take that. Or am I going to stay true to why I left and why I'm doing what I'm doing?
Right.
Like the universe is always going to check you. So I just want to share that to somebody because you're so right. When you do that, VPs are going to call you managers. Two things. They either guilt you or they try to scare you. It's not greener. It's, oh, you're missing away from an awesome opportunity, all this stuff. But remember, these are the same people who just had you work, make millions off you, want to even give you an opportunity to do that. Like we all forget that. Then they're just come dangle the carrot. And then, oh, it's not we have a promotion for you today because you've crushed it. We appreciate you. We just don't want you to leave. So we have to go lose money because we actually know we're undervaluing you and paying you less than you should. We don't want you to leave because we're not going to find someone who can do what you're doing for the amount we pay.
Yeah. I mean, that's how corporate is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's why I wanted to get out of corporate. But the funny thing is, and it matters, relationships are everything.
Yep.
Regardless.
Yep.
And I never want to burn a bridge down. And what's funny is that conversation was actually a very good conversation with that VP. And he told me, if things don't work out, like you've got a place here. And what's funny is I actually did some per diem work for them when I was, grinding my $5,000 a month,
a month, suckers.
I needed to try to make a little extra income and they let me keep my foot in the door and, it was working great. And then actually a territory manager spot did open up and I was one of their first calls.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's like, just because you're pissed and you feel screwed and you still need to, again, humble yourself.
Yep.
Don't burn that bridge. You never know where. I could go back to Boston Scientific this day if I wanted to.
You make a call. It's the relationships. It's all how you leave it. And like, guys, just so you know, when you hear me talking about corporate America, all this stuff, that's not me being like, oh, it all sucks and all this stuff. I'm just trying to help you uncover it all. Right. Because it's like, you got to learn, like we teach this in our program all the time. You got to learn how to play the game.
Right.
You want to know what every average rep never learns how to play? The game. But Jacob, why are you saying that? They drink the Kool-Aid. Oh my gosh.
Kool-Aid's no joke.
It's the best. It's their, like my favorite is like, I'm at a large company. It's the best. Oh, out of nowhere, Q4 just had travel bans. Why is that? Oh, they're now going to save more money, show the reports to their stockholders that they saved more money. Now you're not going to go crush your quota. Now they don't have to pay you out as much money. Now they have out of nowhere back orders that aren't getting shipped out to the new year. Like it's the game.
Right.
And then these same people are like, stay there for 15 years. And then guess what? New quarter comes. They just did layoffs.
Yep.
They'll drop you in a second. That's not saying this industry sucks. It's every industry.
Right.
But it's why people lose and they don't know how to play it, right? That's why I always laugh when like people will be like, the average rep makes 177 grand. And people are like, you can't do that. That's whatever. Did over 200 my first year in the industry. Well, you can't do that. Blah, blah, blah. You can if you learn to play the game.
Right.
And so that's why I sit here and tell you guys, it's not that I love this industry. It's why we do the podcast. It's why it's so much fun. But the conversation that you have to have is you have to understand the industry. Because you know who all talks crap and writes on my LinkedIn and writes all the messages? Everybody making under 200 grand. Just met someone they've been in for 6 years, never made more than 150K.
Damn.
Like, yeah, exactly. Just so you know, when you're a top
that's still really good, no, right?
It is. But like, just so you know, to every single person who gets triggered by that, like, oh, damn, I 150K, you all this, right? There's levels to this game. And like we talk about it on our podcast all the time. I'm going to say it one more time. Eagles don't fly with pigeons. I've said this on our podcast and it's good to say it one more time and people can feel how they want to feel. I'm not taking advice from people making 150K a year when I'm trying to make 150K a month.
Right.
There's levels.
Well, it's also too, it comes down to, it's your decision, right? You don't have to do what you don't want to do.
Yes.
Right. So if you're content being at the same place for 6 years, making 150K and you have work-life balance and you're coasting and that's what's important to you, great. Continue to do that. But don't talk shit on the person
who's
that
hungry
doesn't align with the same thing you do.
Yeah, don't demonize it. And
Right.
I just need to sit here and say this. That's a lot of the people we get in, man, is like that they have a kid, they have families. They just want to make between 150 and 200K, work under 40 hours a week, which is definitely doable. Every rep who doesn't know
Not
what they're
med-device.
well, no, but if they don't know what they're doing or the division,
Yeah.
I can sit here and tell you I could have worked under 35 hours and made north of 200 where I was at. No problem. But when you don't know that world and you've been running trays for the last 5 years,
Right.
that's a lie, right? Like I got a girl right now, she's going for a position, she works way under 4 hours a day and she's over almost 200K right now for just at plan. And she's way above at plan. So she's gonna make 250 plus, right? It's just learning that opportunity. But the reason I'm just sitting here saying that is so many times I watch people demonize it. And you guys will see me, I'm a hustler. I say this all the time. I wish my ticker would just stop ticking to the fact of I'm like, yeah, I could just chill at 150, 200 a year, work under 30, 40 hours a week, have a good work-life balance. I drive to help people more.
Right.
And it's like, I knew I would not be filling my potential if I stayed at 200K at 27 years old, going from when I made 50K 2 years before that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I love growth. I love continuing to help. I love giving back and helping other people do that. But I want you guys to all know that is you'll see the people who get very comfortable, but a lot of the people who listen to this, they're like, man, I'm here to hustle. I want to grow. Why wouldn't I want to live the life I want? Why wouldn't I want to go travel and have money and be able to make different businesses and do this stuff? And this is a great opportunity. So I'm just saying that there's no right or wrong. There's going to be people, 150, 200, work under 40 hours a week. Great, go do that. Nothing wrong with it. But what people get in trouble is when they listen to Bob. When Bob lives in the suburb, he's been in for 14 years, he's married, he has 2 kids, and he works under 40 hours a week and he wants to go drink beer with his buddies on Friday night or whatever it is. And you're talking to the 26-year-old who came from nothing or is trying to make a name for themselves, and they want to make way more than 200. That's where you guys get in trouble. There's nothing wrong with either. But like, you want to learn to hustle and you want to go with it. Like, for example, mentors I learned from make $1 million a month. That's why it makes it easy when people who are making 150K a year are giving me crap.
Yeah.
There's levels, but there's nothing wrong with those people at 150K if they want to stay there. So I wanted to put that out there because I've never really gone into it. I'm not sitting here saying you need to have no life, you need to hustle, you need to keep going. Right. There's some days I wish I could be like, why can't I just shut it off and go hang out on the beach and just chill and be happy? I am pretty happy. I love what I do and I love making an impact, but like, I love working. I love making a difference. I love growing every month and watching stuff grow, but that's not for everybody. And so I think that's really what you're saying though, is like knowing you. Who are you? What's going to make you happy? Because you and I can both attest to this. And that's what I want to just put for our listeners, because there are people in the industry, but they're outside of the industries. Guys, the money's great. Money and like this impact you can have in this industry is amazing. But at the end of the day, it's just money.
I learned that hard truth this year, right? You know, I was working 14 hours a day, right? To, get to my position. I've made more than I ever thought that I would be able to in this industry. Truly, I had to check myself, right? Because you have to be honest about your motivation and really who you are.
Yep.
I let everything go to become as successful as I've been. I stopped taking care of my health, my mental, not spending as much time with my parents. Right? I'm an only child, right? Like my parents are my world, right? And it's like, oh, Sarah's busy. Oh, she's doing this. Like weekends, 14-hour work days, killing myself. It wasn't until recently where I kind of took a step back and I'm like, wow, I got so caught up in the money. And that's not who I am. And I had to take a good hard look in the mirror. Right? Because now it's really easy to get caught up in it. At what point is enough enough?
Bam.
And what are you giving up
to be there?
It's just not worth it. Right? You have to check yourself and you have to prioritize what's actually important. Right? I have to start taking care of myself again and prioritizing myself. And that's not saying I'm going to work any less hard. But I'm going to turn it off at 5:00 at night. If I'm not going to go out trying to find new business at 6:30 at night. Right? It's
anymore. Because they'll be there tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Right. So it's very much, I don't even know how we got to this, but it's humbling yourself and taking a good hard look in the mirror, because it's really easy to get caught up in the flashiness. I'm in the OR with doctors,
I'm
right?
in med device sales.
I'm a med device sales rep, right? It's like, dude, come on.
Yeah. I love that. And why we're talking this way, you guys, like why we can talk this way, the years we put into it.
Yeah.
Like me and her were talking off camera, and why we're even bringing this up right now is like, when we both got into this, we had nothing. And because of the success we have had and the difference we have made in the hours, and why we can say we can turn it off at 5. I never can. I wish I could, but like why you can,
it's a lot easier said than done.
Why you turn it off at 5 though is because of the 6-7 years that you put into this to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's what I want here, every single person, because they'll be like, yeah, that's what I want. And it's like, but did you grind for the 2 to 3 years? Like, let me just sit here and tell Kobe Bryant, you want to be the best? There is no balance. But then at some point you have to rebalance. Right. And that's what I'm big on. You have to, right? Because I realized I was in med device sales, and it's like, I hadn't taken a day off in 2 years, and I'm going as hard as I can. And then my best friend passes away. And it's like, that was like probably one of the most impactful times in my life. Because I remember driving and being like, what am I doing? I remember getting a call from a nurse and just ripping me that I've done in-services for 5 times in 5 weeks. I remember coming back the day after and being like, at 2 weeks, just reflecting on life. And I remember coming into an OR to a pissed off scrub tech, just tell me why I'm late when I was early because this case got moved up. Nobody called me. And I'm like, all right. And then she just was the rudest person. I literally was like, I'll leave right now. And then you can do it by yourself. And then she told me to F off. The GYN instructor was there. They let her, like she got put on leave and she had to go meet with people but that's who I was. And I was like, You're treating me like a certain way. I'm not this way. The reason I'm saying that's not everybody. I had the lowest performing territory in the nation. There was a lot of things in the works. But the reason I'm sitting here telling you is like, that's why you and I talked. I went to Italy and you guys watched that vlog. And it's like, that was life-changing for me because like I talk about, we live to work here. And they work to live there.
Yeah.
Right. And it was like one of those things. So that the reason I'm just sitting here telling you guys is like, go hustle, go do your things, but don't forget what really matters in life.
Yeah.
And like, I'll sit here and tell you, because people will say, Jacob, you work all the time. You know why I work all the time is because I absolutely love what I actually do though. It doesn't feel like work. I love getting calls that I just got a 22-year-old hired at $100,000. And now that person's crying because they changed their life. And they're going to go in and they're going to go change other people's lives. That's what I think it's about. It's about the impact, because again, if it was just about the money, I would have never ran the stuff I've run it how I do.
Yeah.
It would have been way differently all the time. I would have gone on 10,000 free calls before I did any of this. Right. And I think that's the big thing is I want everyone to hear as you go through this journey and stuff is like, this is just real. This is people who've been very successful. And like to some people, 170, 200 grand, that's great. To us, it was like, hey, keep going. But it's also like, we're type A people and many people are going to listen to this and be like, yep, I get it. We're all in, get it. Burn the boats. There's nothing else that matters. But just make sure one thing that you and I've talked about, and one thing I've gotten really good over the last 6 months, 12 months is I'm going to work hard, but I'm also going to make sure I have my time for me. But understand there's sprints to that, right? There's some weeks. Yeah. There's some months. You just got to put it in.
Yeah.
But like for me, like I can sit here and tell you, it's like, I got a trip planned. I'm putting it in right now. I'm on that trip. I love going to another country because then I just don't even buy the plans. And then I only get it if I'm on Wi-Fi. And then I'm like, nobody can even reach me right now, suckers. But the reason I'm just sitting here saying that is like, it's a plan, it's a time. So I just want everyone to hear that because that is the realness. Like I appreciate you sharing that because here's someone at the top and everyone's gonna be like, you gotta have more, you gotta have do this, you gotta do that. But it's like what we've talked about. That sale's gonna be there at 8:00 tomorrow if you didn't go at 6:30, right? And again, let me say this one more time, because you've put in the work, you already have the relationships. It's not like you absolutely need it. Now it's just like, how much more money are you going to make with what you're doing? Right. And we've had that talk. But where I want to really transition, because this is the big thing I want to talk to people about, is what you kind of said, and we haven't gone into much detail about this, is the W-2 life to a 1099 and going into distributorship. Because like you said, thanks for tuning in to part 1 with Sarah. I hope you guys found this really helpful, but I hope you come in next week for part 2, as we are going to start out the discussion of the difference between 1099 and W-2 employees and go into a whole lot of more information that's going to only be helpful for you all. Again, guys, if you can press that like and subscribe button, 5-star review does help us grow this channel. And if you guys are really interested in breaking into medical device sales, feel free to reach out to me at Jacob McLaughlin or New to Medical Device Sales on LinkedIn. You guys can also click the link below if you're looking at learning more about breaking into medical device sales, as our average person breaks in 8.2 weeks. at $94,478. I really appreciate all the support. I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.